الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والمرسلين أبا القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. My paper is entitled Persuasive Techniques in Imam Al-Baqir's Speeches. Now, in this presentation, we are going to talk about the following topics. First of all, we have persuasion, then persuasive strategies and persuasive techniques as well. Then we will analyze the data of this paper represented by Imam Al-Baqir's speeches, searching for or detecting the persuasive techniques and strategies in this type of discourse. Then we'll talk about the results of the analysis and finally some concluding remarks. To introduce the paper, I would say that this paper sets itself the task of detecting the persuasive strategies and techniques utilized in Imam Al-Baqir's speeches. More precisely, it aims at elucidating the persuasion configuration of the above-mentioned speeches. Consequently, it is hypothesized that 1. The most prevalent persuasive strategy adopted by the Imam is response changing. 2nd, persuasive techniques such as alliteration, rhetorical questions, repetition, exaggeration, emotive language, and metaphor are frequently utilized by the Imam. Now, to achieve the aim of this study and test its hypotheses, 3 speeches of Imam Al-Baqir have been chosen for analysis by utilizing the persuasion model developed by the study. Moreover, a statistical method represented by percentage equation has been implemented to demonstrate the findings of the analysis of the data. Now, let us say something about persuasion. Persuasion is an interactive communicative process in which the persuader aims at influencing the beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors of his audience. Now, in accordance with its appellative intention, persuasive speaking is carefully planned or intended and characterized by the most effective employment of linguistic means possible. Okay, so the persuader tries to exploit all the potentialities of language, okay, to arrive at his ultimate goal of attending his audience's agreement and support. Thus, there are certain persuasive techniques and strategies employed by the persuader in order to achieve that goal of gaining his audience's agreement. Concerning persuasive strategies, basically there are 3 strategies utilized by persuaders in an attempt to influence their audience. First of all, we have response shaping. Okay, what does it mean? It is somehow akin to the process of teaching and learning, wherein the persuader is a teacher and the persuadee is a student. A persuader attempts to shape the response of an audience by teaching them how to behave or offer positive reinforcement through learning. The second type is, or the second strategy is called response reinforcing. In this strategy, If any member in the audience has positive attitudes towards a subject, the persuader will remind him those attitudes and stimulate him to feel more strongly by demonstrating his attitudes through specified forms of behavior. And finally, we have response changing. Now, this strategy represents the most difficult way of persuasion, as it involves asking people to change their attitudes. For example, to go from a negative position to a positive position or a neutral one. So these are the persuasive strategies. Within persuasive strategies, there are certain techniques often employed by the persuader in an attempt to achieve his ultimate goal of influencing his audience and gaining their agreement and support. Now, what are these techniques? These techniques may include rhetorical question, alliteration, repetition, exaggeration, evidence, emotive language, simile, and metaphor. First of all, we have rhetorical questions. They are questions that do not require an answer and are asked for effect only. They engage the audience and encourage them to see things from the persuader's perspective. For instance, do we want our children growing up in a world where they are threatened with violence on every street corner? Of course, this question needs no answer. Its aim is to present a point of view from the persuaders or the speaker's angle. Okay, persuasive. The second persuasive technique is called repetition. By repeating letters, words, phrases, and sentence patterns, the persuader can reinforce an argument and ensure that the point of view is being made and it is reinforced and would stay in the audience's mind. For example, now is the time to make real promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from dark and desolate valley of segregation. So we have the repetition of the phrase, now is the time. Simile, it means one thing is likened to another using like or as. This persuasive technique serves to clarify and enhance an idea or a particular point of view. For example, as slow as a tortoise. Here we have the use of as, and he ran like a rocket, like also used. This is explicit simile with these words as and like. Whereas metaphor is implicit simile. It refers to an implied comparison in which one thing is described in terms of another without the use of as and like. For example, time is the subtlety of youth. Here we have time likened to a thief without the use of as and like. Emotive language refers to the deliberate use of words that have strong emotional impact on the audience's feelings. It involves the use of words that make people feel sad, angry, upset, sympathetic, or guilty. It is a powerful persuasive technique, in fact, used by the persuader to stimulate strong emotional reactions and to manipulate the audience's responses. For example, helpless animals are suffering needlessly cruel and painful deaths. Okay, so we have words that have emotional effects such as helpless, suffering, needlessly, cruel, and painful deaths. All these words have some emotional effect on the audience. Another technique is exaggeration, also called hyperbole. This technique involves overstatement, stating the case too strongly, magnifying importance, danger, or effect of some action or event. Exaggeration is used to reinforce a point of view and to gain attention to it. It actually attracts the audience's attention through a surprising or extreme claim. For example, I will die if he finds out. I will die. Here we have some exaggeration. This weighs 10 tons. This weighs 10 tons. There is no possibility of having really 10 tons, but it is some sort of exaggeration. Another technique, persuasive technique, is evidence. It refers to the use of information, facts, or statements employed to support a belief, opinion, point of view, or a presupposition. This technique adds weight to and backs up the persuader's point of view as far as it is objective and irrefutable. Alliteration, it refers to the use of words that have the same initial consonant sound. For example, Sydney is a slippery slide. Here we have 3 words starting with S, okay, the consonant say sound. Sydney's slippery slide. It is often used for emphasis, to make certain phrases memorable, and to attract the attention of the audience. Now these are the persuasive techniques. Now we have the second part of the study, which is the data analysis. First of all, we have data collection and description. Now the data of this work is represented by 3 speeches delivered by Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salam. In the first speech, he is addressing Hisham bin Abd al-Malik. In the second speech, the Imam is talking to a group of people whose hearts were full of hatred towards Imam Ali alayhi salam. Finally, the third speech is addressed to a gathering of people whom the Imam noticed to be in a complete state of negligence of their duties towards Allah Almighty. Concerning the method of analysis, this paper implements 2 types of analyses, a qualitative one and a quantitative one. The 3 speeches are qualitatively analyzed by utilizing the Persuasion Model developed by the study, explained in section 2, which is the Persuasive Strategies and Techniques, and moreover a quantitative method represented by percentage equation has been executed to support and demonstrate the findings of the qualitative analysis of the data. This is the model developed by the study. Now we have persuasion having 2 branches, strategies and techniques. Strategies are response shaping, response reinforcing, and response changing, whereas the techniques are 8 ones, which are rhetorical questions, alliteration, repetition, exaggeration, evidence, emotive language, simile, and metaphor. Now we have an example of analysis. This is in fact the qualitative analysis of the third speech delivered by the Imam to while he was sitting among a gathering of people, and he noticed that they were in a complete state of negligence of their duties towards Allah the Almighty. Consequently, he addressed them to advise them to restore their relation with their Creator and worship Him in an appropriate way that fits His omnipotence and almightiness. As such, the Imam here is adopting the persuasive strategy of response shaping, shaping as if he were a teacher and the audience are his students, and he's in a way, one way or another, teaching his followers and guiding them to the right path to walk in. To achieve this end, the Imam exploits certain persuasive techniques. The first technique is rhetorical question. So the Imam in the speech uses phrases and sentences such as ألا تأخذون الذهب من الحجر، ألا تقتبسون الضياء من النور الأزهر، ألا تأخذون اللؤلؤ من البحر، ألا تحمد من تعطيه فانيا ويعطيك باقيا. All these are questions that need no answer. The aim of these questions is just to gain the attention of the audience and to attract their attention to things that they do not remember anymore. And second, we have the technique of alliteration, in which the Imam uses words that start with the same consonant sound. So we have الهيئة المعجية، الهيم المعطنة. We have ha and ha, and then we have mim and mim. Okay, so these are examples of alliteration. The third technique is repetition. In fact, the Imam repeats certain words in the speech, such as lis and lusus, singular and plural, amir, ammaru, and amira. And also we have Allah, the name of the Creator, is repeated more than one time. And we have yawmaka and al-ayyam also repeated. Fourth, we have exaggeration. The Imam uses this technique to attract the attention of his audience, in which he says إن كلامي لو وقع برق منه في قلب أحدكم لصار ميتا. Okay, these are statements of exaggeration to attract the attention of the audience. And the fifth technique is evidence. The Imam uses quotations from the glorious Quran to support his point of view. So we have the ayah الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه, and also يا ليتنا نرد ولا نكذب بآيات ربنا ونكون من المؤمنين. And also we have the use of emotive language, in which the Imam uses words and phrases that have an emotional effect to make his audience feel guilty and to raise the feelings of fear inside them. So we notice that the Imam uses sentences like كأنك قد نسيت ليالي أوجاعك وخوفك. So we have أوجاعك وخوفك. These words have certain emotional effect. انظروا إلى هذه القبور سطور بأثناء الدور تدانوا في خططهم وقربوا في فرارهم وبعدوا في لقائهم. أيضا here we have words that have certain feelings and emotions, such as قبور and تدانوا, قربوا في فرارهم بعدوا في لقائهم, to describe people of the grave. And the seventh technique is simile, in which the Imam uses كأن to symbolize people who forget their duties towards Allah by describing them as being خشب مسندة وأصنام مريدة. خشب مسندة وأصنام مريدا. This is the way the Imam describes these people. And finally we have metaphor, in which the Imam uses implicit simile without using as and like. So we have via أشباحا بلا أرواح. The Imam symbolizes likens these people to ghosts, and also by saying ذبابا بلا مصباح. The Imam employs these similes and metaphors to describe the awful state of these people around him who do not know their way. They were in a complete loss because they cut the bonds between them and their Almighty Creator. Now we have the quantitative analysis of the work. This type of analysis is meant, in fact, to support and demonstrate the above qualitative analysis. I have presented statistics about the recurrent use of each item in the model utilized in the three speeches. In addition, the percentage of each item has been offered to give a clear configuration of the analysis. Here we have, in fact, the figure that demonstrates the percentages or the recurrent use of each item of the model in the three speeches. Okay, we can notice that repetition scores the highest percentage among other items, and we have also rhetorical questions and alliteration. Okay, they score the highest percentages. Now, concerning the results of the analysis, findings of the two types of analysis have shown that the persuasive techniques of repetition and rhetorical questions score the highest percentages. We have repetition with percentage 22.64 and rhetorical questions with the percentage 18.86. The techniques or the technique of simile scores the least percentage 1.88, being implemented only once in the text, whereas metaphor is employed more frequently with the percentage 13.20. This in fact proves the high and rich linguistic and persuasive abilities of the Imam, in that he implements implicit simile, which is metaphor, that requires a richer stock of eloquence and rhetoric, unlike the explicit one. Finally, we have some concluding remarks. Qualitative and quantitative analysis of the data has led to the following conclusions. 1. The first hypothesis set at the beginning of the work, which reads, the most prevalent persuasive strategy adopted by the Imam is response changing, has been verified. So the first hypothesis has been verified. How? This is due to the fact that the Imam knows that his audience have some negative attitudes towards the progeny of the prophets sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he truly wants to change these attitudes. Second, the second conclusion is that the second hypothesis, which states persuasive techniques such as alliteration, rhetorical questions, repetition, exaggeration, emotive language, and metaphor are frequently utilized by the Imam, has been also validated. Imam Al-Baqir, in fact, employed the above-mentioned techniques to achieve his ultimate goal of convincing his audience, who are characterized by petrified minds and ruined hearts. Persuasive technique of repetition and rhetorical question are the most frequently employed techniques exploited by the Imam in his attempt to change the attitudes and behaviors of his audience. The least implemented technique is that of simile, in that the Imam resorts to the implicit simile, which is metaphor. This actually shows the high influence and supreme rhetorical abilities of Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salam. Now we come to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much for listening.